So without the right product, your brand is dead. Everything in e-commerce starts with the product. So when someone scrolls past your ad, they're judging your product immediately. When a customer lands on your landing page and bounces, it's because they don't really want your product. Even with the best content and the best offer, none of it matters as much if your product sucks. And so most people fail not because they're lazy, they fail because they pick the wrong product. Get the product wrong, and nothing else works. And then if you get it right, and you'll see your whole entire business and life change. And so if you're trying to figure out which product to sell in 2025, you need to know the 5 non-negotiable criteria of a winning product. And so I've been able to build 3 e-commerce brands from scratch, and all 3 have hit over 6 figures per month. I've also helped over 2,200 people pick products and then launch their brands from zero, no existing product list, no previous business experience, and absolutely no idea where to start. And so by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly what to look for in picking products that actually sell. So here's criteria number 1. What you want to do is you want to solve for one, all right? So let's start off with the most important piece of the puzzle, and most people get this completely wrong. So your product has to solve a single clear problem, and for one specific person, not like for everyone, not like women aged 16 to 65, not people who want to be healthier. We're talking about real specific defined person with a specific problem, and here's exactly why. So when you try and speak to everybody, your message becomes very blurry and vague and also just completely forgettable, all right? You end up saying a whole lot of nonsense that no one really wants to hear, and it's because it doesn't actually feel like it's for them. Why would they care if you can't be specific to them? So when you talk a whole lot of nothing into the void, your ads don't convert, your content flops, and people scroll right past it. So one thing I want you to understand here is that marketing overall is a disqualification game. And so when you can be very specific to a particular avatar, what happens is you're able to actually disqualify a whole bunch of people very quickly and very easily. Let me give you a real world example here. One of our clients, Tom, he started out selling these generic kind of pet products, leashes, collars, dog toys, the whole kind of shebang. But it just would not take off. He was spending money on ads and nothing was really actually converting. And the reason for this is because nothing stood out. There was no clear message, there was no unique hook, there was no person who thought, oh yeah, that's for me. That's exactly what I've been looking for. And then he made one crucial shift, is he just picked one niche and he focused on one specific customer, namely the Staffy dog owners, only one dog breed. And so suddenly his whole entire business changed. He created a chew-proof range of toys that could stand up to the jaws of Staffies, reinforced leashes for Staffy strength. And the brand itself went from about $10,000 a month up to over $500,000 a month in 18 months. Okay, and that's the power of solving one particular problem for one specific person. It makes everything easier. The ads get easier, the content gets easier, the product development gets easier, and because now you're speaking directly to one person who really cares about what it is that you're doing for them. So when you search for a product, avoid the mistake of not going narrow enough. Criteria number 2 is it solves a pain or fulfills a deep desire. Now, just a little segue on this. You really want to optimize for making sure that the problem that you're solving for in the marketplace is a problem that people are aware of. Okay, if you're solving a problem that, for example, needs education for people to actually understand why they should solve the problem. Perfect example of this, there was a water filter that a friend of mine kind of created, and they had to educate the market as to why the water that was coming out of the shower was actually bad for their skin, bad for their hair, and thus it actually extended how long the sales cycle would be before you can spend money on ads versus actually get the return. Because the customers don't yet understand, hey, that is a problem. I jump into my shower, I turn the water on, I have a shower, no problem. I don't really know there's any issues with that. Only when I start to understand the issues with, for example, the water, the chlorine, the fluoride, all those things, oh wow, that's maybe the reason my skin is so dry. I better actually use this filter to clean the water before it goes on my skin. And so we really want to focus on something that is a problem that people are aware of and they don't need to be educated about, because it makes the speed that people purchase the product or get your solution a lot shorter as well. People don't buy things just because they're nice or aesthetic. They buy them to really solve a problem or get something that they deeply care about. It's either pain relief or emotional payoff. And so if your product doesn't do either of these, it's going to be really, really hard to sell, especially at scale. Now, when I say pain, I'm not just talking about, for example, physical pain. It could be frustration, it could be insecurity, it could be inconvenience, stress, any negative feeling that your product can remove. And on the flip side, if we're talking about desire, it might mean feeling confident, saving time, standing out, feeling more in control. And so the stronger the emotion behind the product, the easier it is to sell. Okay, we worked with a client who launched a line of super stylish activewear, right? She spent months getting the branding right, making sure the fabric felt incredible, the colors were really popping and attractive to the eyeball. It looked great, but it completely flopped. flopped. And it wasn't because the product was bad or it was low quality, it's because it didn't really solve a specific problem for a particular person. So we told her to listen to her audience, and she jumped onto our coaching calls. She read every single customer comment, asked better questions, and lo and behold, her customer didn't really care too much about the style. It wasn't their number one priority anyway. Instead, they were desperately trying to find workout gear that actually held everything up during high impact exercise. Gear that, didn't ride up, didn't chafe, and didn't fall apart halfway through the workout. So she pivoted, she redesigned the line to be performance first while still keeping them stylish. And when she did relaunch, she sold out completely. And the reason for that is because she was solving the problem the customers actually wanted, okay? And so what happens is if you skip this, you end up with what we call like a meh product. People like it, maybe they even complement the product, but they don't need it at all. And so they don't buy it. And what's worst of all is with products like this, because it's not bad enough for the founder to quit, they don't quit. However, conversely, it's not good enough for the brand to actually grow profitably. So you're stuck in this position of neither here and nor there. And so when finding a product, ask yourself this: what's the pain that I'm removing? What's the desire that I'm delivering on? And if you don't have a strong, specific answer, you don't yet have a winning product. Criteria number 3, it rides in a growing market trend. So let's say you pick a product and it's great, and it's for a specific person, it solves a big problem, right? But you're in the wrong market. It won't matter. Building a business in a shrinking market is kind of like trying to open a surf shop in the middle of the desert. It doesn't matter how good your gear is, there's no wave to ride. You want to make sure that you're building the brand in a market that's already growing. When there's momentum, everything gets easier. It's cheaper, there's more clicks, there's better conversion rates, organic word of mouth, and repeat buyers all increases, and they all stack in your favor. We had a client recently who jumped early into the carnivore diet space, right? Not a huge market at the time, but it was on the rise, and there were massive conversions happening online. Influencers were talking about it, more and more brands were capitalizing on it. So she moved fast, launched a range of carnivore-friendly products, positioned herself as one of the first real brands in the space, and then month after month, her business grew without needing tremendous ad budgets. And the market was shifting her with it. The market was almost like taking her, and she was just like riding along on the upwards trend. Now, on the other side of the coin, imagine this: we hypothetically have a client that comes to us and presents an idea to create a product around printed magazines, right? Let's just say they want to create a curated collector style magazine for entrepreneurs, beautifully designed, printed on high-end paper with quarterly releases, maybe even monthly releases, right? It could be a great idea. You might put it on coffee tables and stuff around your house. You might put it on your office desk. Cool idea. Sure, absolutely. Sustainable? Absolutely not. Okay, the print media market is declining. CDs, DVDs, fax machines, home phone lines, all of these markets are shrinking. And so it's like, we don't want to go and start anything in those markets because you are losing customers at a rapid clip. Sure, look, you might get some nostalgia sales here, people coming through and being like, oh wow, that'd be amazing to put on my coffee table. But that's about it. But trying to build a scalable brand in one of these spaces is like swimming against the current, okay? Every dollar will feel like a grind. So here's the rule: don't try and create demand. You want to capture it, all right? Look for search volume going up, communities growing, not shrinking, new conversions happening, platforms recommending related content. Look, the market will show you where the heat is, okay? Your job is to step into it. So criteria number 4, and this is really important in today's current market, so the product needs to contain some form of a wow factor. If people don't want to talk about your product, you're going to have to pay for every single customer you get. You want to make sure that your product has this kind of like wow factor, meaning visually or emotionally, it's shareable. Some products naturally get shared. They're incredibly satisfying to use, and they make people feel something, or they just look so damn good that people can't help but to post or share about those products on social media platforms. Other products may work fine, but they're kind of invisible, right? No one's showing them off, nobody's talking about them, and you end up relying 100% on paid traffic. Let me give you a couple of examples here from inside eCom Capital. First things first, Basu here, we launched this reusable makeup remover that costs about 50 cents per cloth to make, but it works exceptionally well. I don't wear makeup myself, clearly, but the first time I actually tried the product and I just wiped my face after I actually purchased the business, I was shocked at how much dirt came off my face. But it was really satisfying, and that part of it is why it really works. There's something about seeing like the grime come off your face in real time using just water that people love. And it's that same feeling you get watching, cleaning hacks maybe on TikTok or pressure washing videos. It's gross, but you can't really look away from it. And that's kind of the shareability, the wow factor that most brands overlook. It's not always about having something beautiful or polished. Most of the time, it's transformation that gets people to stop. It's going from dirty to clean. It's going from like hair to no hair. You see this all the time with a lot of content online at the moment. It's infectious to watch, and there's all these kind of scroll stoppers that have you just watching and consuming the content because it's interesting. And so we want to bake in as much of that as possible. So circling back to Basu, customers posted about Basu without us asking them. They filmed, their first use reactions. They tag their friends. They even bought the Pursue packs for their friends. Now, we didn't have to beg them for UGC. It kind of just happened. And because the product itself created this moment that people wanted to talk about, and that's what actually led the business to do hundreds of thousands of dollars in sales. Criteria number 5, it has healthy margins. Look, let's be honest, you're not building a brand to look good on Instagram. You're building a business because you want to make more money. And if your product doesn't have enough money left over after all the expenses have been paid, then what's the point? At the end of the day, it's not about how much you can sell, it's about how much you can keep. And this is the most important part that people really ignore, especially early on. They look at revenue and they think that they're winning. But what they don't see is the cost of goods, the cost of shipping, the cost of ads, the cost of software, the cost of packaging, the fees. And suddenly that $100,000 a month in revenue has $4,000 or $5,000 left in profit. Now, you can't grow from that alone. You can't reinvest from that. You can't hire people from that. You probably can't even take a breath of fresh air at the end of the month. And at eCom Capital, we really aim for 80% as a gross profit margin and at least 30% net. That's kind of the minimum that we want to be seeing when helping someone launch and then scale. Let me give you 2 examples of brands we've worked with. We worked with one founder who was selling apparel. Now, their shirts were flying off the shelves in big volumes and they had great revenues, but after all of the costs, he was making less than $2 per order. Now, this meant that he couldn't increase ad spend without losing money, and he's always fighting to reduce the cost of acquisition, reduce your front-end CPMs, reduce the cost per click. And if you know anything about advertising, advertising is going to consistently increase over time. CPMs increase, eyeballs increase because more and more and more people advertise. And so to rely always on the front end of your acquisition channel and constantly fight that battle is a very, very difficult battle to fight. Then there's one of our other brands that we own inside eCom Capital, Pursue here, that I mentioned earlier. Now, this has over 90% gross profit. Now, what this means here, for example, is out of every $100, as an example, only $10 is product cost. The rest of that is potential gross profit, meaning I can spend that on advertising and marketing, I can spend that on people, I can spend that on, actually reinvesting into the company next month. And so what that allows for is so much more buffer room each and every single month to navigate the ups and downs of advertising, increases, decreases with CPMs, and you have so much more of a cushion, right, to make sure that you can actually gouge profit out every single month. That's the difference. If your margins are too tight, you'll hit a ceiling very quickly and you won't be able to scale. And the worst part is, if you don't know your numbers, you won't know why things are feeling hard. You'll be stuck doing more and just keeping up with nothing left to show for it. And that's when most people burn out or they give up completely. So when you're picking a product, it's not just, can I sell this? It's, can I sell this and make real money? All right, so those are the 5 criteria of picking winning products. Number 1 is it solves one clear problem for one specific person. Number 2 is it alleviates some pain or fulfills a deep desire. Number 3 is it's growing in an actual trending market. Number 4 is it's visually or emotionally shareable. And number 5 is it has healthy profit margins so you can make real money. If you miss one of these, you might still survive. Miss 2 or more, you're probably going to struggle. All right, the product is the foundation. Once you get this right, everything else will be much easier.